So welcome back to KaiStack. In our first video, we managed to get everything set up to do this project. We started a GitHub account, which allows us to store our work and to track our progress. We set up a CodeSpaces in GitHub, which allows us to actually make our app and to edit any code we need to do. And we install the Expo Go app on our mobile devices, which allows us to actually test our app out. And at the end of that video, we actually set up a fully fledged app and we actually tested it. Now, you might be watching this video directly after the first video, which is great, in which case you've already got your CodeSpace set up and on your screen. If you're starting afresh, that's fine. Just log back into github.com and click over here on your icon on the top right hand corner. Go to your CodeSpaces, and you should actually see your CodeSpace appear down here, which you should just click on, and it'll start up your CodeSpace and get you back to this screen. Now let's take a look at the Explorer here to look at the files in this directory. So we've got our app folder, which contains all of the files for our app that we created earlier. Now the most important one so far is this one, app.js. If we click on that, this essentially contains the brains of our application. It tells the software how to create the app, how everything's laid out. And if we have a look here, we've got the home screen. If you remember, on the Expo Go app, we loaded the app up and we saw two screens, a home screen and a settings screen. So these are the definitions for those two screens, and right in the middle of each one we've got some text. We've got home exclamation mark and settings exclamation mark, and we can actually change that if we want to make a minor change to our app here. We can say hello, this is my app, and then if you load that up in the Expo Go app, you can actually see the words changing. Same here, if we change settings to this is the settings page. Okay. We should also see a file here called gitignore. If we click on that, we can see what's inside this file. Now this is a file that essentially tells Git, which we're going to talk about in a minute, to ignore certain files. Certain files are just irrelevant to the project as far as tracking the changes of are concerned. Now currently there's one within the app folder. We want to copy that and paste it into the parent directory, so the wider directory for our work here. Now we're going to do something which is not directly related to actually making our app. We're going to do something rather important called a git commit. We are actually going to save the progress that we've made so far to our GitHub account, to our repository, our remote repository. So how does Git actually work? How do we save our changes with Git? So we've got some files we want to save the progress of, app.js and gitignore, which we've made some changes to just now. We want to bundle those changes into what's called a commit, which is like a snapshot in time, a sort of frame in time where we want to freeze our progress in case we ever want to come back to this point. And each commit has what's called a commit message. That's a message we write ourselves, which describes what's going into this commit. So in this case, it's the starting changes, so we put starting changes. After we've made a commit, we then want to push this commit to the remote repository. The remote repository is essentially the website, github.com. Now when our project gets a bit bigger, and perhaps when we're working with multiple software engineers on the same project, we might find that several people are pushing their changes to the remote repository. Obviously, we need to get a way to bring those changes into our project, and we would do that with what's called a pull. So commits that other people have made, we would pull those commits into our local repository, into where we're making our changes. And then essentially it's the whole process in reverse. We're pulling commits that other people, or perhaps even ourselves, have made elsewhere into our project, and then those are making changes to files within our project. So how do we actually go about using Git to do a commit? So if we click here, source control, we will see some files here that CodeSpaces believes there are some changes to. The ones we actually care about is this one here, app.js, and also we've made some changes to gitignore, which we've moved to a parent folder. You can go ahead at this point and click up here where it says changes. You can click this stage all changes. So we're now moving all of these files into a commit. And then, as I said earlier, we need a commit message. So started. Oh, we don't need inverted commas. Started work on app 1. And then if we click commit, we've just made a commit now. So there's the option to sync changes that will push and pull any changes from the remote repository. Currently there's only pushes to be made, so let's click that. Okay. Now if you currently don't have the app running on your mobile device, we can start it back up by moving into the directory of our app 1, and starting what's called the development server again by typing yarn start -- tunnel. Once again, you should get this QR code which you can scan with your mobile device or the Expo Go app. Now if we load the app back on our mobile devices, we should see the updated app in line with the changes that we made earlier. You can now see that some of the text has changed, and that's about it really. So how about we make something more interesting for our app to do? Let's head back over to our code space, and we need to load up app.js. Now each screen is defined by a series of components, and these components are placed within each other like Russian dolls. So here we've got a view. So a view is essentially just a box which contains other things. It's essentially just the main screen of our page, and this is where it's opened, and this is where it's closed essentially, and then everything that's defined inside that essentially just goes inside that. So we've got a text component here, and that's being opened and closed as well. So components, when they're defined, can have a style definition as it's defined here. So let's change this style definition to give the home screen a different background color. So currently it has the default background color, which is white. So let's change it to background. As we start to type it, we'll see the option in the drop-down list. Let's go for background color, and then let's give it a background color of red. So once we've typed that, if we look over on our device which is running this app, we should now see the background turn to red. Now if we take a look at the settings page of our app, we can see that the background is still the default color, which is white. Now how about we change that? Let's click here in the settings screen function. In the style definition here, we're going to type background color, and let's change that to something. How about yellow? So we should see now that the settings page has turned to yellow. Now this would actually be a very good time to make another git commit. So we've just made some changes, so let's commit them. So if we click back over on source control, you can see that we have made changes to app.js again. So let's click stage changes. We've just staged them. So let's type for a git commit message, we can enter background color changes, and we can commit and sync those changes. And once again, we've pushed those changes to our remote repository. Now once again, if we click back over on our page for our GitHub repository, we can see that we have made that commit. And that's pretty much the end of the lesson for today. You've made some pretty big progress today. It might not seem that we've only made a few small changes, but you've actually started to develop some really useful skills here. You've learned how to use Git to make a commit and to push your changes to the remote repository. And you've started making changes to the code of the app in order to actually change how the app looks. So, well done on today's lesson. I'll see you in the next lesson where we're going to do even more interesting things, where we're going to change the appearance of the app even more. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. See you in the next one. Bye.